So it is my pleasure to introduce our three panelists today who have extensive knowledge with launching products for our panel titled, What Product Ideas Have High Potential, right? So together with me and between them having launched over 50 different products, 50, we have Jason Tay. Not sure whether he still needs an introduction, but Jason is the founder of the Soap Haven as well as jasontayonline.com. He's a former English and history teacher, and now he shares his knowledge freely as an Amazon coach. He has explored many models of selling, many e-commerce stores, and wears many hats. Secondly, we have Felix Law, our Amazon Global Selling Ambassador. Felix started selling in Amazon in 2018, and he's very passionate about building products and businesses, and ready shares his experience as our Amazon Global Selling Ambassador. He has actually a background in science and engineering in the manufacturing sector, so he brings a lot of practical experience also in terms of working with factories in Singapore, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. And then last I talked to him, he was even trying out like 3D prototyping for his samples, right? And Sao Hu is the founder of Nordik by Design. He flew in all the way from Australia to be with us today. Fao is a dedicated entrepreneur in the Amazon e-commerce space, and he's the founder of Nordik by Design, which is a minimalist office and stationery brand in numerous countries such as the US, Canada, UK, Australia, as well as Japan. So let's welcome our panelists on stage. And welcome back on stage, Jason.
Thank you.
Jason flew in from Australia too. Yeah, I'm sure he misses Singapore food. And Saul also flew in from Australia, less familiar with Singapore food. So if you do bump into him, do give him your food recommendations, like what's good, what should he catch, right? All right. So I guess like just kind of as a warm-up, and so that everybody in the audience kind of gets a little bit more understanding about your product launch experience, right? Maybe we can take one round to introduce like how many products have you tried to launch and how many products succeeded? Do you want to start?
So I have 25 active products. On top of that, I failed about 10 to 15. So in total, I launched about 30 plus SKUs.
Right, all right. Good ratio.
So for us, we started selling in 2019. In terms of products, we've tried to launch 10. And successfully, I would say 6. This is not including the SKUs in terms of color variations, but in general, products is about 10.
Yeah.
I kid you not, but I have listed over 1,000 listings on Amazon. But I used to sell wholesale, you know, like I had a retail account with Hasbro, so I sold like Captain America toys and all that. But from 2016 onwards, I got rid of all my wholesale accounts. I got rid of all the other stuff, and I focused solely on my own brands. And so right now I have just under 30 SKUs that are active.
Wow, that's a staggering number, but I guess as they say in entrepreneurship, right, there are no failures, there are only experiments and learnings. So I guess my question is, what was like kind of the key learning that was the game changer, right? So that over time your success rate improved.
Oh, okay, so when I first started, I couldn't figure out how to ship from China to the US, so I thought like, you know what, let me just source in the US so I don't have to deal with shipping and customs. And so I actually found like a wholesale website on the US. I don't recommend doing that because it's marked up like by a lot. But I ordered a carton of steak knives, and I ordered a set of cutting boards. The cutting boards were actually made in Malaysia, and the steak knives, I have no idea. But long story short, within a month, all the steak knives sold out, and after 2 years, the cutting boards were still sitting in FBA. But that was a blessing in disguise because it caused me to like really want to know why did one product work and why did one product not work, and hence begin my journey of selling on Amazon. Not just selling, don't just try to sell on Amazon. You want to try to thrive on Amazon. Yep.
Important keyword. What about you?
So for me, I focus on the data. So very more data driven, and I also try to focus on building the process. So I also try to launch as many products as possible, try to gain more experience. And then along the way, I think it's important to have, build your own processes and nail it down as soon as possible. yeah, so yeah, eventually, I kind of get like a more successful hit rate.
Yeah.
So for us at Nordik by Design, we had a very focused approach on building a brand when trying to launch on Amazon. So we developed or we identified the persona or the customer avatar of who we want to sell to. So the key learning for us is to stick to that. So we did deviate it from that by selling another product that was readily available on Amazon. It was just another product with similar features, and the only differentiator was just the listing quality, and that itself was not good enough. On Amazon, if you want to thrive, you want to build a brand, you've got to differentiate, you've got to innovate, and you've got to stick to who you're actually selling to. That's my key takeaway.
Right. So I'm picking up using data-driven, data, developing customer personas, having a strong USP differentiator for your brand. And also the selling model is very different, right? Like when you're a wholesaler, when you're a reseller, when you're actually trying to develop a long-term brand. So let's get a little bit right here into your product research and kind of like launch philosophy, right? Because I think this can be kind of like very personal to different sellers. So I hear very different approaches, right? So, okay, my first question is, quality or quantity? Launch one really good product that you put all your effort in, or launch many, and then out of many, one will thrive, right? Kind of like maybe what some might say the spray and pray approach.
I'll jump in on that one because it's sort of related to what I mentioned before. It's neither this nor that. It is a balance, and it's quite circumstantial. It really depends on, one, the time that you have to develop products, but two, how closely aligned you are with the product that you are building. So just coming from my perspective, and other sellers have had success launching with hundreds of SKUs. I personally don't align with that. I strictly feel that whatever product or brand you're building, you've got to resonate, and you've got to identify what the needs of the customer are. So for me, it's a quality thing, definitely a quality thing. Make sure you think hard about it, but not too hard, because you do have to set specific goals on where you want to launch. So balance with strict goals, timeline goals, launch with a good quality product which addresses the pain points or the needs of your customer.
Yep, so for me, I actually adopted the spray and pray approach because when I first started, I didn't know what I want to sell. So eventually, I did manage to find a few niches that I felt I could do well in, and then that's when I started to focus. So for those of you who are in similar situation, I think the spray and pray approach might be something you can consider.
Well, I definitely still do pray, but I don't necessarily just spray indiscriminately. I think every shot I take in terms of a product is always a calculated shot, and I want to know that I have an extremely high probability of success because I've looked at some of the important factors that will determine the success rate of a product.
So, that's really interesting. So my next question is also maybe a little bit like subjective. It really depends on the seller, right? So usually when you decide to launch a product, is it more head or heart? Purely data-driven, purely I must love this product and I'll make it work, or kind of like somewhere in between?
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty much data-driven, so head first. And then eventually, as I go deeper to the niche, I start to empathize, the problems my customers are facing. And then that's when the heart starts to come in. And it happens a lot for me.
Yeah. I always hear that reading like wonderful customer reviews, right, really pushes you forward. How about you, Sal?
Definitely, again, it depends as well, right? That's a key, that's a word of the day, I suppose. It depends. For me, it starts at the heart, definitely, because I am building a brand and building products that I love to use, right? But then again, I need to validate it with data. Is there a demand for it? Am I just weird that I want this particular product, or there's like a few million people that think the same way that I do? Chances are that could be, but we live in a world where data is so freely available, so we need to leverage off that available data. And yeah, you got to take a look at whether the search volume is there, whether the conversions are there, the price points, all that has to be validated with what you think your product, if you think your product is successful or not.
Right. Quite a balanced approach, right? Everything in moderation. How about you?
I think I have a few different approaches. Different products started off differently. Some of them were just looking around, and I found that friends and family were experiencing an actual problem in their life. And like, you know what? I don't believe that can't be solved, even though everyone, including doctors, say that it can't be solved. And I went out there and I came up with a solution. So I actually have customers call me at 1 a.m. from the US and said, we've tried everything for the last 20 years and your product is the only thing that works. My husband swears that he will be a lifelong customer of your brand. So that's one. Some of my products are purely data-driven. I find a gap in the market. There is demand, there's lack of supply, and there's good profit margin. And then like, I don't care about this product, but you know what? It's real easy. I just contact somebody, the agent I know in China. I said, hey, can you go find this? He comes back in 2 hours, says, yeah, here's the price. I'm like, oh, okay, I can get that for like 60 cents and I can sell it for $20, done. And he'll go order 100 to start off and I'll dump it there. And then, okay, it generates like several $1,000s of profit a month. So I start off like a miscellaneous brand for those types of products that I honestly don't really have, I don't care about. And then I also have brands which I care about. Yep. So, yep, bit of mix and match.
Right. I hope that customer lives to like 120 years. Right? Yeah, so many of you have some decisioning factors, right, that kind of guide your decision-making process, right? So maybe let's do one round and you can kind of rank order a little bit, right? What are the key decisioning factors, right, that you use personally to decide, I'm going to go with this product?
Oh, this is something I've been preaching for years. So because I used to be a teacher, I had to teach people like the caste system in India. So I find a way for like 14-year-olds to remember this, right? And so for me, it's PVC. You know, like your PVC pipes. So P is profit margin, V is velocity, and C is competition. Any product in order for me to proceed with or move forward with must have, number one, enough profit margin. Number two, must have decent velocity, which means demand, right? I don't mean number of sales. I mean number of multiple keyword phrases which have decent search volume, doesn't have to be super high, but it has, number three, low and or weak competition, which means there is a gap in the market. That's what I like to go after. When these three align, then I'm like, ha, pull the trigger, and I'm 80% sure this is something that will do fairly well, doesn't require tens of thousands in marketing, because I mean, I've literally looked on Amazon and searched for a product which thousands of people want to buy, and there's literally 20, when I search the main keyword, only 24 listings show up on desktop. And the desktop allows 48 products on every page. There's only one page, 24 products, of which half are not even a product that's relevant to the search term. And then you know this is a no-brainer. You list it, people will buy. And then you look at the 12 listings, they are all poorly written. You know that they are written by non-native speakers. So the way I write, like in the US market, I always put myself in American buyer's shoes and I pitch it to them.
Interesting. How about you, Felix?
Yeah, so for me, the first thing that I look at is the demand or the sales velocity. So I wouldn't want to sell a product that nobody wants. So that's important. And then I think there must be enough sales velocity such that it's worth my effort, to work on a product. Yeah, so that's the number one thing that I always look at. Secondly, I will look for opportunities. So, how strong is the competition, or is there like a lack of competition, as well as unmet needs. And I like to look for problems to solve, because I think if I am able to solve a problem that no other competitors not able to solve, I think it gives me a higher chance like for me to be able to succeed in the niche. Yeah, so yeah, that's for me.
That's cool. I think Felix and Jason captured that pretty well. PVC, what a great acronym. I'll use that moving forward. That's very important. But to add to that as well, I probably got two more on top of the PVC, which is one, brand alignment. The products that you're launching, are they aligned to the brand? That's, as you know, Nordik by Design, we sell premium desk mats, which is our hero product. I'm not going to go and sell toilet paper. It's just even though that it ticks all the PVC boxes. So that's one thing I need to consider when building a brand, and that's super important in today's world in the Amazon. The next one is probably budget, right? And I'll use a toilet paper example as well. Great niche, high volume, make lots of money, but you need to, if the top sellers on page one on the relevant keywords they sell about 500K a month, and you want to compete with that, and usually you need to take about 3 months of inventory. If you don't have 1.5 million capital on your 3 months of stock, you're not going to play in that space. So budget is something to consider on what you have as well.
That's actually a huge point that he just made. I meet a lot of new sellers, so if you're starting out and your goal is, I just want to test the waters out, I would be happy with like a 2,000 USD profit margin roughly a month, just to see if the concept works, whether this Amazon selling thing is real. Then that's a much easier kind of little bite of the pie to start off with. The common mistake people make is when they're greedy and they try to go for like a giant chunk of the pie. Like I had a couple of fresh graduates, they had a Bluetooth speaker, which they made in China, and Amazon actually referred me to them. But they were competing against Sony, Bose, Anker, and they were being blown out of the water, and they had no budget for marketing, advertising. Their speaker had no unique selling point. So I said, even if you paid me $30,000 consultation fee right now, I will say no, I'm not taking on your product because I will not be able to do anything with it. It's just not feasible. Yep.
Yeah, so I think we have aligned a few common factors even between our three diverse panelists, right? So maybe let's deep dive into a few of those components, right? So I think like Jason and Sal, you both brought up like healthy margins, right? So what in your personal view is a healthy margin?
Okay, you want to start?
Well, the higher the better, obviously, right? But generally, in terms of gross margin, it will be about 30%. You're doing great. Higher the better, obviously. But anything lower than that, you're treading on thin ice because you need some to be left over for advertising, other incidental costs like returns, maybe like things that you didn't expect. Maybe your products aren't up to expectations and production run is no good. And like, for example, I think one of the panelists mentioned whole run of blankets were moldy. So these kind of things you need to factor in your margin. And 30%-ish is my personal view, okay.
Cool, that wasn't actually rehearsed, but I would have said 30% as well as the minimum baseline. Of course, the higher, the better. I think also, if you look at the larger retail picture, Amazon is a great place to start. And if you have proof of sales from Amazon, you would have mastered how to source, produce, market, brand. You would have mastered packaging, shipping, and logistics. You know what? There is no stopping you taking the rest of the 85% of the offline market. But the key is you must have sufficient margins. So just to give you all a ballpark, you are looking at least a 1 to 6 or 7 time multiple of production costs to realistic retail price. Not talking about idealistic list price, okay? An actual selling price. If your production cost needs to be about 1/6 or 1/7 in order for you to be really like do well long term. After you add in shipping and all that, like if your product's oversized or whatever, you will end up with about a 1 to 3 multiple. So Amazon fees are going to take up about like 1/3 of the cost for FBA. your product landed cost, which is cost of production, plus cost of shipping. It's going to take up another about 1/3, and then you will be left with about 1/3, so 30% thereabouts.
Yeah. I know there was a session earlier on budgeting, but I think this really helps to add a lot of additional texture, right, in terms of like the ROI expectations too. So thank you for the really astute, insights.
Oh, sorry, one more thing. So if you're at 30% profit margin and no other costs, you will also end up doubling your money because 30% is your upfront out-of-pocket expense. The Amazon fees are actually paid for by the customer because it's pay per use, like FBA fees you only incur when a customer orders and then Amazon charges you for delivering to the customer. It's paid for by the customer, not you. And then Amazon pays you the selling price minus their 1/3 of fees. So you end up, you spend 1/3 upfront cost and you get back 2/3 of the selling price.
But even though you're an English and history teacher, I think the mathematics lesson here was really valuable to everybody. Thank you for that. So both you and Felix mentioned unmet demand, right, which is kind of linked to weak competition. So what kind of data points do you look at, Felix, right, in terms of unmet demand? What is unmet?
I think my favorite pastime has been like, reading all the reviews in the product listing. Like, not just unmet demands, but I really like to look for, problems that has not been solved. And, really like trying very hard to solve that problem. Then working with the supplier and the factory to do that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And Sal, you mentioned budgets, right? So is this pertaining purely to advertising budget or?
It's more so your investment in the inventory, really. Yeah. So, I mean, like the general rule of thumb is to invest in about 3 months of inventory, right? So, like I mentioned before, if it's 500K a month of sales to be relevant on the page 1 of the relevant keywords, then you need to times 3. So, you got to ask yourself whether you have that budget to play around with.
Right. Okay, so right now, let's introduce the Opportunity Explorer tool, right? The tool actually has a lot of data points which can help you decide which products are good to launch. And a lot of these data points also link back to the decisioning factors that our panelists have mentioned, right? So now let's take a look at the Product Opportunity Explorer. In terms of demand and velocity, right, as you can see here with cooling blankets, this particular niche in the US, you can see everything from the volume of searches in the last 360 days in the US. You can also see the number of units and products sold in the last 360 days. You can see the average pricing of the product. And you can go down into even like the per ASIN competitors, right? For the competitors, how much of the clicks are they getting, the average price that they're selling for, even their average ratings, right? So that's just one of a few data points that we have within the Opportunity Explorer tool. Next, in terms of seasonality or trending information, right? I think Ethan highlighted this earlier too. Let's say for cooling blankets here, you can see definitely cooling blankets do well in summer, right? So August, you suddenly see a peak, right? And towards the end of the year, not sure why, maybe people are buying it as gifts, maybe for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and for their friends. So this can also help you kind of forecast inventory and demand and kind of decide when is the best time to launch this particular product. And I think a lot mentioned like there's a lot of competitor analysis that you need to do too. So here we can also see like the percentage of competitors within this product niche that use fulfillment by Amazon, the percentage that use sponsored advertising, right? So it gives you a sense, okay, maybe if I come in here, I do more advertising, I use fulfillment by Amazon, I can gain some share. Even in terms of like out of stock rates for the existing niche, what is that? Some sellers actually do look at the out of stock rate to kind of see, oh, actually there's an entry point fee, right, to enter into this category. And also even review ratings even has everything, number of brands, number of products, how long they've been selling, average like reviews. So a lot of rich information that you have at your fingertips, right, to decide whether you should be launching this product. Another data point, which is extremely valuable, some of our panelists mentioned this, is reviews, right? So maybe before, yes, during your bedtime reading, you kind of have to pause through this yourself, read through. So what are the top reviews? What are the bottom reviews? Now, what Amazon Product Opportunity Explorer does for you is we analyze the keywords and we highlight them specifically for you. What are the key points where the competitors are winning in terms of positives, and also what are the unmet demand points, right, in terms of like the negatives, right? So maybe for the cooling blanket here, the cooling factor is not strong enough, or in terms of the fabric, there's a pilling effect from the cotton. So if you can improve and design a better cooling blanket, and it's pretty hot here in Singapore. I think we can be kind of like the champions in this regard. maybe there's a chance, right? So this is not just at a category niche level. This is also at a specific product competitor level. So if you want to dive into the competitors selling here, all this information down to the competitor ASIN level is provided to you, right? So I'm just going to pause here, right? Because this tool is relatively new, and a lot of these data points have been made available and transparent to sellers like yourself, kind of for the first time, right? And as Ichan mentioned, not just in the US, but also in Europe and Japan too. And I guess maybe before it was kind of a bit more manual or difficult, but based on like what the data points that we are seeing now, and vis-a-vis also your decisioning factors, what stands out for you as kind of like really helpful data points for your next product launch?
Yep, I can go first. So I think what stands out for me is in the first slide, I see a lot of 4.3 ratings.
Oh.
So I think that is an indication that there could be a problem that has not been solved by the niche. So from there, I would start to dig deeper and then like read all the reviews and see if there's any opportunities for problems for me to solve. Yeah.
The first thing that jumped out at me was actually the seasonality. I caught that two ways. One, just from the product that says cooling blanket. I don't know if you can see or you need binoculars. But yep, cooling blanket. And then, of course, two, using the Opportunity Explorer shows the graph there. So for me, I immediately think, okay, this is a product with the risk of I prepare stock for the hot seasons, summer and the shoulder seasons. And if I don't sell out, it's going to be stuck in FBA for another year, 9 months, before accumulating on, you're being charged storage fees month after month after month, which might totally eliminate your profit. And then you start selling any remaining stock. So then it presents a challenge of, do I order more to stay in stock throughout summer, or do I order less and run the risk of stocking out, but then not be overstocked, reduce the risk of being overstocked. So that's the risky thing.
Interesting observation. Anything you'd like to add, Sal?
Yeah, I'll continue on the seasonal trend. Like that's a real good data point as well, because previously, without this coming from the Opportunity Explorer, you had to go on like Google Trends and try to look at what the trends are and hope that it would be the same or reflected upon the Amazon store. But for me, if I see a seasonal product, I'm running away because that just adds a bit more complexity in inventory and the supply chain. Generally try to stay to like, more predictable sales patterns. But yeah, that's pretty good to have, to just see whether, a particular product has seasons to it. Obviously, cooling blanket does. Aside from the seasonal sort of data point, I can see, like, you can see that's an average price, $40.80. It's not circled or highlighted. And then you see the average units sold in the past 360 days, 100 and 250. I think that's pretty useful to give you an indicator of what the sales volume is for that niche. And again, just continuing on how much budget you need, like $40 by 80 times, I don't know, let's say 250, you multiply it, and then you just have a bit of a gauge on how much sales volume and how much capital investment you need as well. So these data, we used to have to pay for it. The years preceding the Product Opportunity Explorer. So it's good to have that. We sometimes pay hundreds of dollars a month just to get access to this data. But now, and even then, those data is sort of like guesstimates at most. But to have this real accurate data coming straight out of Amazon, it's a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, before, when Tu showed this to us in a briefing a few days ago, so she said, how do you all use this? And we were like, What's this? I've never used it before.
You should attend tomorrow's session then.
So for years, how I've done it is I use Helium 10 and I have my own proprietary spreadsheet, which I developed over the years myself. So I have my own like 10 data points where I populate manually and then it comes out with a color coding system. And then I know whether it's green, a go, or red, a no-go, or amber, a maybe kind of thing. So for me, the Opportunity Explorer would just make it easier for me to pull out some of these data points. A lot of it cannot be, for me, I will never make a decision based off just hard data. I will always search and go browse through the product search results page on Amazon to have an actual look at the live listings. Number one, I'll think, is this something like 1,000 sellers from China could jump on in the next 3 months? If that's the case, nah. Is this something which I could really differentiate with my branding and some unique selling point? And just looking at the page, you'll be able to get a sense of, is this a product you would do? Because I also, I guess, would do products that I would conscionably do. Yeah, so, and like, just what's the overall feel of the market? Is this something I want to go in and be able to dominate? If I cannot rank at the top of page 1 for multiple keywords for a product, then forget it. Because all e-commerce is primarily keyword driven. People go onto Amazon, they have an idea of something they want to buy, they search for what they think it's called in the search bar, and then the algorithm serves up a bunch of results. If you cannot optimize and run ads in order that you are at the top of page 1 for that keyword, then your listing will go nowhere. It's like you stocked a product at the supermarket, but the staff left it in the storeroom and forgot to put it on the shelf. All right, so that's the key. You must be able to rank for keywords associated with the product.
I didn't manage to show it here, but actually it will also show you all the keywords within the niche trend, right?
That's great.
Yeah, and I might just add on this product in Singapore, the trend chart would just be like that because we're just hot year round. So maybe it can do well in Singapore, to be fair. All right. So I'd just like to highlight again that tomorrow we do have an in-depth session in terms of advanced product research use cases where we'll go a lot deeper in terms of how you can use data in the Opportunity Explorer tool as well as the product marketplace product guidance tool. So that's happening tomorrow, 3:35 p.m. There are breakout consultation sessions both today as well as tomorrow for product research that you can join too. So do stay towards the end of the day where you can actually engage in more like one-on-one consultations with Amazon and with Jason and with a lot of our experienced sellers. And there is again the November Seller Meetup event, just purely focused in terms of product research too, right? So come to the Amazon office and have a chance to learn more about product research because we do understand that there is a high demand from sellers to get their products right? So thank you so much to our panelists, and I think you will see Sao in a breakout session tomorrow. You can see Jason in a breakout session today and tomorrow too, right? Yeah. So many chances to interact with them. Do give Sao some food recommendations. Yeah. Thank you for coming to our panel here today, and don't miss out on the other chances to learn about product research.